So please welcome Steve Gill.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. How are you? Man, I got to tell you, I'm looking at my friends Howard and Sally Wall over here. I'm thinking when I ran for Congress back in 1994, we weren't far from, if we tried to gather a group of conservatives and Republicans and constitutionalists in Murfreesboro, we could meet at the Wendy's drive-thru and we would have had an empty seat. I mean, things have changed a lot, haven't they? And after a long time and a lot of people like me trying and not coming quite close enough, the 6th District's going to have a new congressman for the first time in 26 years. All I ask you, because after I came so close to him, they didn't move me. I lived in the same house, but they moved the line of the district, and suddenly I wasn't in the 6th District anymore. Amazing how that worked. What an amazing coincidence that I was no longer in the district anymore. But all I would ask is that you all look at people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, don't just listen to what they say. You know, and you probably hate hearing this from a talk radio guy, but talk is cheap. It's kind of easy to talk. Now granted, not so easy at 5 o'clock in the morning when I go on, but it's easy to talk the talk. I hope that all across this country, folks will really look and listen at what people say and then match it to what they've done. I want to see folks that walk the walk, not just talk the talk, and that's Republicans, Democrats, Independents. Judge them by their deeds, not their words, because talk is cheap. And we can't make any more mistakes, because once these people get up there, it is so hard to pull them away. They get all the powers of incumbency, they get all the lobbyist money and everything else, and the siren call starts whispering in their ear, and it's amazing the things they can justify in Washington, D.C. when they can't look you in the eye down here. You know, it used to always shock me. You know, Al Gore was a conservative when he used to be the congressman from this district. You could listen to him, I swear. He sounded like a conservative. And, you know, then Al goes up and he starts hanging out in Washington. Next thing you know, he's telling us about global warming and how he's for gay marriage and all that kind of stuff. Look, my family's been over in Smith County about 200 years. And I have never seen a gay pride march in Smith County, Tennessee. I don't know where the gay pride Gore connection developed, but it wasn't in Smith County, so don't be blaming me or my kinfolk. That's more that San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi, New York City nexus, Barney Frank nexus that dominates the Democratic Party these days. And all my kinfolk for generations were Democrats. They haven't changed where they are on the issues. The Democratic Party has left conservative Democrats, and it's time for folks all across the political spectrum to come together and say, I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we need to be thinking, people, and think with our heads, not based on what our granddaddy was. As I've told folks for a long time, in the 6th District in Rutherford County in Murfreesboro, if we can just get the God-fearing, gun-owning, unborn baby-loving, man and woman marrying, too high tax-paying, honest, decent Americans to vote what they think instead of what their granddaddy was, we'll all be on the same side of the aisle. Vote with your head, not based on what your granddaddy was, whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. We got a lot of folks in Upper East Tennessee, their great-granddaddies were Republicans. But they're those kind of squishy Republicans sometimes. You know those Olympia Snowe, Susan Collins, Lindsey Graham, John McCain Republicans that go up there and again, talk the talk here and then do something different in Washington. And we need to clean them all out. I don't care what they are. And it's our time to do it, starting in places just like this. I would be remiss anytime I get an opportunity to speak, not to ask those who have served us in uniform or who have family members serving us in uniform to stand or raise your hand so we can say a God bless you and a thank you, because you all are the reason we have the ability to speak out here. Thank you. And God bless you. One of the great things about this whole Tea Party movement is that it is really a great opportunity for people to grasp our history. And by the way, if we've got teachers in the crowd, raise your hands if you're a teacher, because I like to say thanks to those military folks, but teachers also deserve a special thank you as well from all of us. They may not get combat pay, but by gosh, you know they're serving on the front lines in some of the toughest territory we may ever face. The reason I bring them up is that a lot of times when we were in school, history classes, particularly when we were in high school and a lot of times in college, and they weren't really that interesting. I mean, the way we taught it was, remember this date, remember this person, remember this battle. And it's just all memory and it's all facts. And it's not about the people and the challenges and the courage and the doubt and the opportunity that presented itself, and how in our history, every single step of the way, great men and women have always stepped forward and been there when we needed them. That's the real lesson of history. And the great thing about the Tea Party is how many people are going back and reading about our founding fathers, reading the Constitution. And as you learn more about these founders and start trying to figure out how do we continue in the steps of history from them to now to the future, people are getting kind of this whole new concept of who we are as a nation based upon where we've come from. You know, when you think about it as a kid, excuse me, as a kid, you used to want to kind of sit at the feet of your grandma and granddad. My boys do it as well. And they want their grandmother and granddad to tell them stories. What was it like when you were a kid? And that's history. And we're going back now and learning, what was it like? What were the challenges? What were they thinking? What were they looking forward to when they were writing this Constitution and when they signed that Declaration? And I think as people learn more about these founders, they realize that they were moms and dads, they were brothers and sisters, they were sons and daughters. We go to Washington D.C. sometimes, you got these monuments and you got these statues that are granite and marble, and they look like heroes and heroic because they're posed in all these fancy ways. But we fail to understand that they were people just like you guys. And just like us, they were parents who were worried about their kids when they signed that Declaration of Independence. You know, I might sign it saying, I'm happy to take what comes to me, but what about my family? They had doubts. They were facing the most powerful military force on earth. This was not a done deal. Some people in our history today think, well, you know, George Washington rides his horse in, you know, they sign the Declaration, throw some tea in the harbor, next thing you know, we're free and independent. It was not an easy deal. We had guys wrapping cloth around their feet, marching through snow, leaving bloody tracks in the battlefields as we mainly ran and hid from the British because we couldn't confront them man to man because they would have devastated us. We were always just one battle away from this great idea of liberty and independence just slipping away. And like real people, these guys were scared. They were worried. George Washington was leading this small band, and many times they didn't have many more people than we have here. And they were under his care. They were under his guidance. He knew them by name. When they fell on the battlefield, he knew them. He knew their families. He had a tremendous burden and responsibility. We wonder sometimes why we read so much of our founding fathers kneeling in prayer, talking about lifting their hopes and prayers to the Almighty God. It's because that was the only thing that stood between them and destruction. And they knew that there, but for the grace of God, went that hope of independence and liberty and freedom. They were real people, which makes them more heroic, more great, because unlike these statues, they were flesh and blood. They cried, they wept, they worried, just like us. And in every step of this great adventure of American history, real people with real worries and real concerns have stepped up and said, I'm not a great person, but it's my time. It's my opportunity to step up and do my part in the history of this nation. And they've been worried and they've been fearful and they've stepped up and done great things. Ordinary people have stepped up and done great things. That's what's always set us apart as the greatest nation in the world.